Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you Living Theurgy, our podcast. And with me are some living theurgists who are all exceptional and leaders in the field. And I'm looking forward to our conversation, as I always do. We'll start with Apollonius, then we'll go to Clio, then we'll go to Tony, then we'll go to Brandy, and then we'll go to Jean-Louis. Our topic today is initiation. So we'll start with Apollonius. Welcome, Apollonius, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you. Welcome to all of you too. Yeah, I've been thinking about initiation since you suggested the topic. And it occurs to me it's interesting that initiation, of course, suggests beginnings, a new beginning. Um, but the ancient Greek term was telete, which means a finishing, a completion, a fulfillment, And so I think it's important to understand initiations both as an ending and then as a new beginning and as the transition between those two. I think thinking about initiation in general terms, it seems to me that in all of these cases, it's intended to bring about some transformation, uh, some psychological transformation, we could say, or spiritual transformation, transformation in the soul, and that's really its purpose is to affect a change, a transformation from one form of life to another form of life. And so so in that sense, it's a symbolic death and rebirth. It's the death of one version of you and the birth of a new version of you. And this is why often in some traditions, for example, in an initiation, you shave your head or you cut your hair short because then you're like a death head dying to the old life and a baby's head being born into the new life. But traditionally, initiations have three stages of purification, illumination, and unification. And the purification is getting prepared for the immediate initiation ritual, which of course could go on for days or longer. Um, and there's all of the other preparation before that to get ready to be prepared for that transition. But then the purification is the immediate preparation. And Plato says that purification is separation. And so really what the purification process is separating from ordinary life and preparing for this transition to a new form of life. Then illumination, we tend to think about um, getting great ideas or learning secrets or whatever it may be. But I think it's important to understand illumination in the context of initiation as literally your mind or your soul is being flooded with some new powers, some new insights, some new feelings, some new abilities, and depending on the type of initiation. And this is really the transformation is to allow you to experience your new powers. I'll just use that as a general term. It could be contact with divinities or other spirits. It could be psychic powers. It could be magical powers. It could be something as mundane as courage or resilience. But to have you actually experience those things, and that's why many traditional initiations involved things that would elicit fear or pain or require endurance, because it would require you to actually call upon these powers and experience the fact that you could call upon them and that they would be available to you. And then the final stage, unification, in the context of initiation, usually means then integration into some group, typically the group of initiators. So whatever it would be, the magical practitioners, for example, or a religious order, or a order of spiritual practitioners, or a military group, or a sports team for that matter. All sorts of things like that. And so what you've done is transform your individual personality and soul so that it is now a vehicle for these other powers, which you now have contact with and that you can call upon and use them in the service of that group, whether it's the wider community or whether it's a more specific type of group. And this is why often after an initiation in this third stage, you may take on a new name because it's a rebirth again. You may put on a uniform or symbols of whatever that group is. So you may a signet ring or a amulet of some sort, or a special hairstyle, or clothing, or a tattoo, or all sorts of other things like that, which again, sort of in an embodied form, reflect the fact that you are now one of those who can call upon those powers when necessary. Um, so I think in my sense, that's the general what initiations in general are trying to do of whatever sort. Again, from very mundane sorts of initiations to initiations into magical orders or into spiritual programs, and or things like puberty initiations too, which are of course common in many cultures.
Thank you, Apollonius. That was excellent. I was wondering when somebody would get to the fact that initiation is a telos, it's an end. And thank you for bringing that up and also making it very, very concrete and understandable. A lot of people are mystified by initiation, but you brought it down to very everyday and known terms. So thank you. Clio Ajana.
Hi, hello everyone.
Hello.
This is interesting because I was so glad we could all get together tonight, because I am in the middle of an initiation weekend. So a
Wow.
lot of, yeah, I know. And so my idea of fun is hanging out with theurgists. Um, and it's interesting. I want to follow up on a couple of things that Apollonius had mentioned, because it makes me recall that when I consider initiation, the first thing I think of is the purification aspect of it and the preparation aspect of it, especially of, what is your favorite soap, things to prepare your physical self, from either a lack of eating, the fasting part, the how you ritually bathe your body. Um, not, I'm not going to shave my head, but shaving the other parts of one's body. Anything to prepare oneself, and also just the attitude of looking at what one is written, looking at how one is approaching. The nice thing about it, at least the best advice I've ever been given, is because you don't know what's going to happen. There's no need to question, anticipate. And I'll be honest, I'm an overthinker. So if there's like a zillion things, nightmares as a possibility, I'm that person who has thought of it and makes it more. And yet every time I've gone through an initiation, the biggest surprise is that I question, and I then come up and go, oh, it wasn't that bad, or it might be a lot worse because there's just some things I hadn't considered, because that's a part of the test. It's the fool walking off the ledge, so to speak. That to me is the part that is both the scariest and also the most exciting. I'm more excited this time around than I have been before. The other part is what I'm saying goodbye to as an initiate. I don't know, Apollonius, if you had mentioned that already, but you're saying goodbye to so many things that you don't even realize until after you've gone through the passage of it. And the things that you're saying hello to with your abilities are sometimes the very things that you're unsure about. Like, why are you the person who gets to figure out X, Y, and Z? It's like, oh, okay. It's maybe something other people have seen and you just haven't seen it in yourself. And getting used to that part of yourself, it's kind of like getting married over and over again, in the sense that you have the renewal and you have this wonderful ability to see things through a different lens. The other part of initiation that I consider is that you're helping to create a new path forward, not just for yourself, but as part of whatever tradition you belong to. That's a really big thing that nobody really talks about. Um, and the other part I just blanked on. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It happens to all of us.
And see, that's the thing. You guys get to say it. Oh, yes, aging. There's always something when sorry, Brandy. Your face just makes me want to laugh again, even more. Aging, because there's something where I think as you go through, there are some parts you're like going, yeah, life is good, things happen. And as you age through each successive initiation, you're able to pick up things that you can then share with others. That's the best part of initiation, being able to share what you have with someone else. And then when you get to be the person who goes through and initiates others as the initiator, you get to say hello and goodbye again. And that cycle keeps weaving and continuing. So getting to say goodbye to the people who came before me and goodbye to the person who's initiating me, in not in a literal sense usually, but just the goodbyes and then the hellos. It's good. And I'm curious to see what other people have said because it's probably the more serious and because I think Brandy's after me, right?
Tony is.
Tony is. Sorry, Tony.
Well, thank you very much, Clio. And as always, you were very generous with your insights and you opened doors to many other ways of looking at the question. And Brandy did have a show recently, Witchcraft and Theurgy, where some of what you said wove very tightly with the types of things she was discussing with Tiresias. So I'm looking forward to seeing if those connections manifest so further. And I can identify with what you said about getting older. And I'm finding that getting older is an initiation in and of itself. And I trust life to put me through my initiations, and then I get confirmation through synchronicities. So I had some realizations recently about mortality and immortality. And when I was doing one of my mythology classes in school, I was waiting downstairs, the security person there and I, converse. And the insights that I had, he's had the insights recently. So he mirrored my mind and my understanding by repeating what I had realized. So I told him that also. So life is indeed wonderful. And thank you for having fun with us. And I really appreciate that. Tony Mierzwicki, he of the
Okay,
amulet.
okay, so Hercules just mentioned synchronicities, and the first thing that came to my mind was the synchronicity of Clio's upcoming initiation coinciding with our discussion on initiation. Um, the other thing is Apollonius gave a wonderful overview of the whole initiatic process. And the bit that I wanted to focus on was the bit where he talked about, the death and resurrection aspects in a purely symbolic sort of way. So a lot of cultures in ancient times looked towards Egypt for inspiration. And in Egypt, the use of underground chambers as part of the initiatic process was particularly important. So when we look at Lucian's text, The Lover of Lies, or Philopseldes, he wrote about Pancrates, who was an apprentice sorcerer from Memphis, a sacred scribe, an extraordinary scholar who knew everything that Egypt could teach him. He claimed to have spent 23 years in the secret chambers underneath the earth where the goddess Isis had taught him how to become a magician. And his initiation included doctrines as well as rites. Just as an interesting aside, the particular story was adapted in 1797 by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe into a ballad entitled Der Zauberlehrling. I probably butchered that pronunciation. It literally means the magic learner. And that ballad became very popular in German-speaking countries. In 1896, the French composer Paul Dukas adapted that ballad into a symphony entitled L'apprenti sorcier, which means the sorcerer's apprentice. And then in 1940, Walt Disney Animation Studios adapted Dukas' symphony into a cartoon sequence for the film Fantasia, which featured Mickey Mouse as the apprentice. So whenever Susan and I would go off to Disneyland, I'd always feel a bit of a kinship with Mickey Mouse in that particular role as the apprentice. So by way of comparison, Julius Caesar stated that in order to become a druid, it required an apprenticeship of 20 years. So we're looking at very substantial periods of time. So to become a magician in Egypt, 23 years, to become a druid, 20 years. Cyprian, in his apocryphal autobiography, a former orator who became a bishop and died in 258 of the Common Era, claimed to have lived 10 years with the priest of Memphis in order to become a magician. And again, that involved underground chambers. Arnobius and Celsius, citing Jewish sources, both stated that Jesus Christ was a magician and had performed his miracles through hidden techniques. And he learned those techniques in secret subterranean chambers of Egyptian temples, along with the names of powerful angels and secret doctrines. And after all, Christ in his youth had spent some years in Egypt. The Jewish allegations were not only that he was working magic using angelic names, but he also had tattoos of gods on his chest. So that's typical of Egyptian priests. The Greeks also had similar initiation accounts. So Herodotus told us about Zalmoxis, who was a former slave of Pythagoras. He was hidden in an underground chamber to prove to his fellow Scythian citizens that there existed a life after death. Pythagoras was reported to have hidden for a time in a small subterranean chamber and returned to it as if he were returning from the dead. He was well informed about everything that had happened on earth, for he had obtained his knowledge from the mother, which was a figure parallel to Isis. So again, you've got this divine influence coming in. And it's been suspected that there was a rite of Scythian or Pythagorean initiation, the latter case into the mystery of the great mother Cybele or Demeter. Oracular sites had similar rites. So in Claris, the priest entered a subterranean chamber in order to obtain the oracle's answer. At the oracle of Trophonius and Boeotia, each visitor performed a ritual journey into the netherworld before obtaining their answer. A high knowledge always results from the subterranean meeting with a superhuman being. So there's this huge difference between the way the ancients viewed the underworld to how Christians view the underworld. Christians tend to look at the underworld as, it's hellish, it's a place of punishment and everything else. Whereas for the Egyptians and the Greeks, it seemed that it was a place that they would go to in order to master knowledge. So I previously mentioned that Pancratus was instructed by Isis herself. Then there was Thessalus of Tralles, and he claimed that he was instructed by Imuthus, which is Greek for Imhotep. Then we have another ritual that goes back to the fourth century, and so it's a particular initiation where the initiation's given as a gift by Cyrus the Great. Also, according to the Greek poet Pindar, it was Aphrodite who taught Jason erotic incantations using the eonks, which is a magical tool used in a type of magic that was sometimes depicted in the hands of Eros in Greek earrings. So the eonks is basically a small wheel suspended in the middle of a loop of string. So it's wound up and down, and the string winds and unwinds and makes a humming sound. And Jason used this particular tool to seduce the witch Medea in the 3rd or 4th century CE. And the eonks was also used by Neoplatonists. I'm pretty sure Apollonius wrote about it in one of his texts, which I reviewed. So the Theurgists would use it for rain-making, manipulating daemons to send out prophetic dreams and invoking or releasing the deities, and drawing them down to possess a spirit medium. So I just wanted to sort of flesh out what Apollonius was talking about, the idea of using subterranean chambers and also having a divine influence coming in. So any sort of initiation that you receive has to come from the divine. That's basically all I wanted to say.
Wow, Tony. I not only added to what Apollonius said, but you greatly expanded it. And I can see a book coming just from this conversation alone. Like, awesome. And you helped me gain a new insight into one of my life's initiations. Again, part of my realizations are that at least in what we call living life or being alive, a great deal of it is still in the underworld. It's in the caverns. And I got some insights into Plato's Cave of Shadows. So thank you. You've taken me to a new place, and I have plenty to meditate on and contemplate in the days ahead.
Hercules, you've given us an incredible gift. You bring us all together, and we're all learning from each other. We're all getting ideas from each other, and we're growing as individuals because of this very panel. And hopefully, our listeners are getting something out of it as well.
Oh, they do, and they are, and I thank you for your kind words. Brandy Williams, our muse.
And if I had known you were going to talk about the Jungs, I would have brought mine out. Actually, I just want to say I wrote the use of the Jungs into some of the initiations for Sisters of Sashat, and it's not an easy instrument. You have to take this thing and wind it and then get it going and then sing over it. So it takes a little. I always practice it before I do the initiation, but it's wonderful to follow on from Tony, because I've been thinking about who does the initiation, and you ended with the initiation always comes from the divine. And one of the subsets of this topic is self-initiation. So when I first became a witch 50 years ago, self-initiation was just not recognized. Initiation happened, a group initiated a person, and that was what was necessary to be able to call yourself a witch. And some of us started agitating that there aren't always groups that you can join, but we'd still like to become witches. And Doreen Valiente actually finally said, you know what, I think self-initiation is valid. And I do too. And here's why. Because the power to initiate comes from somewhere. It is held by the group. It is directed by the initiator, but it doesn't originate with the group or the initiator. It comes from somewhere else. So where is that somewhere? And for me, it's always the gods. It's always the divine, and I've contacted divine powers through initiation as a witch, as a ceremonial magician, and as a tantric, where the initiator comes and brings the mantra and visualization of a particular deity and imparts the ability to contact that deity. And then my tantric teacher had a wonderful comment. Actually, I described to her a moment when I had been enormously embarrassed. I embarrassed myself on a public list. Tell me you have not ever done that. I don't recommend the experience, but I was sitting. I wasn't able to think, but stopped my thinking. Stopped my thinking, and I was mortified, literally like frozen. I said, I have to get out of this state somehow. And so I played the Lalita Sahasranam, which is the 1001 names of Lalita that are just chanted. And I sat there and listened to it. Normally, my mind goes like a little set of monkeys. It's like always going, right? But I was frozen. So I sat and I listened to all of those names. And I told my tantric teacher this, and she said, that was an initiation. So this is how we, which I really love this idea. I'm like, yeah, it gave me a power, and it allowed me to move out of that frozen death experience that old person died into this new experience of being able to move into the world and have being again, not be quite so embarrassed. So I think that that's important, and it's important to us as theurgists, because something that haunts me as a theurgist is that ceremonial magicians use theurgy to describe the rituals of ceremonial magic. The Golden Dawn, in particular, consciously revived the use of initiation and theurgy and initiation, but we know that the ancients had a lineage that they passed, and I haven't had that. I haven't had that initiation, right? So as a theurgist, I'm always thinking about rebooting this lineage. We're starting, and the only way that we can do it, aside from finding a surviving group in Greece, Hercules, maybe you have a line on somebody who's held on to that lineage. Other than that, it's contacting the gods directly, and then they start the new line, and that's where I think we are.
And that's a good place to be. And you read my mind, because I was going to talk about something about rebooting and doing something at the end of everybody's presentation today. So thank you very much, Brandy. As always, you're an inspiration. As always, you're light shining in our firmament. So thank you. And now Jean-Louis de Biasi, an initiate into these traditions and a keeper of the mysteries. I think you're muted, Jean-Louis.
It's down on the bottom. The mute button is on the ribbon on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, he's not muted on my screen.
I know where it is,
Oh,
but
there we go.
I lost my the mouse. So this is easy to see where to click if you have the right device to do it. If you do not, you need a kind of initiation to start. Thank you.
I'm glad the illumination came.
So many things to say about this, and I do not have the time to write several things, so I was just highlighting few things I love to say about it, because I did a few lectures about the initiation, mainly in Freemasonry, Romanes, Kabbalistic order, and so on. So you were talking about lineage coming from the past. I am in charge of a lineage coming from the past, and a very long lineage. So this is already done for me for a long time. This is, if I am not talking right now about Freemasonry, this is a theurgic lineage. So in this case, it was interesting to read sometimes about initiation and to see what I received, what is my experience in the various initiatory orders. I mean, in the Western world, in this life, I have been initiated in a lot. For example, in Freemasonry, to all degrees possible, and you can imagine. And there are a lot in Egyptian Freemasonry. So what, on the theurgic level, what I can say is, and I am sure that I will lost several elements, but the first is the goal of the initiation, and Apollonius said a lot about it. And the first goal is, yes, a purification, a transformation, a connection to a magical chain, an integration on the spiritual level to a specific egregor, a connection, a real theurgic connection to magical chain and the lineage, and the understanding that you will not have just one initiation, but as this is a progressive process, you have several initiations in such order and such Western orders. The point is to use the symbols as theurgic tools. And during the initiation, there is a very precise, almost scientific use of the symbols. The point is, at the beginning, to welcome someone who has been well prepared, purified, and so on, and to help him or her to do an inner experience, to awake several aspects of the psyche, of the inner beings. And this work is performed by the initiators and the officers on behalf and for the initiate. And this is a huge responsibility, because when you do that, you really work for someone. You are doing something for the initiate, and you are helping him or her to realize and to change the state of consciousness for a while, to help him or her to go forward for a while. And after, you have the duty to give them the tools to continue this work. So this is a kind of push at the beginning. I am talking about the beginning, the first initiations. So there are various steps. So you are helping really. And I insist on the fact that this is a real responsibility and duty when you are in such tradition. This is at the same time, you must be humble because you are using a specific technique to change something in someone on behalf of a tradition and gods and goddesses. So you channel a kind of energy. You are just a tool in the initiation, exactly as the other tools you are using. And when I am saying you are, I am talking about the initiator himself or herself. He is a tool. If he has this this pride to be the one who initiate and so on, is lost already. Is delusional. Is an initiator is nothing more than a channel who give the power to a new initiate and who allow him or her to go forward and to reach a specific state of consciousness, connecting him with the magical chain always. So this is very different according traditions, because some traditions are less theurgic than others. This is very theurgic. Freemasonry is less, for example, it is more symbolic. Maybe the ritual is very close, but the use of the symbol is not. And it works as long as the initiator is well trained to do it. If you do it as if you are just declaiming a text and doing something that is nice and so on, this is not working. This is nice. It can have a very good impact. You can have a real psychological effect on yourself, your life. Something can change, but not the core of who you are, not really who you are deeply. This is not the start. So the initiator and the officer must be trained and have accomplished themselves the same. If not, this is not working at all. You cannot initiate someone to some place you never went. So this is really this duty, and you, with the humility of the initiator, mainly you have after a lot of practice, you have a mix between fear and doubt. Why? Because you are doing a sacred work, and the sacred work must be achieved for someone well prepared. And you never know if this is the case or not. So this is a duty. You are allowing someone to do an experience without a real knowledge of his or her preparation. You don't know. So this is a kind of doubt at this point, and you have to work with it. So you have to channel that. Besides that, I said that there are several steps in the initiation, because in the Western tradition, and theurgic Western tradition, you are using these steps to reach the only helpful initiation. That means death and rebirth. You are talking about underground chambers, caves, and so on. I am talking about caves. These initiations are well known because we read about it. Freemasonry built the third degree about death and rebirth. This is exactly the same, but on the symbolic level. In almost all serious traditions, East and West, the final initiation can be real, and caves were used for that. You are supposed, and if you do, and if you go through this initiation, you really die, and you come back, hopefully. The point is not to stay there, but to go through. So to go on the other side, in full awareness, to see what is on the other side, if you forgot. To come back with this awareness, and the fear vanish. The point for the initiator is to help you to come back. So you can imagine the responsibility you can have and why this kind of experience is very, very rare for this very reason. And I am really, by experience, very convinced that in the past, Egypt, Greece, and so on, in some instances, this initiation was real, as I am just saying, that the initiates were dying and they were coming back with life fully transformed because they knew they had at this point the experience of the afterlife and rebirth. So it changed a lot. And the secret is important at this point for two reasons. First, you cannot do that to anyone. Second, you cannot express what you just experienced. You can know in 1 second if someone received the same initiation as you, but you cannot talk about it to someone who didn't experience it. This is not because this is a secret. This is because nobody can understand. You can recognize in someone if the experience has been done. You can read in a text of someone saying, okay, this one knows about what he's talking about. But that's it. And all these steps, the theurgic steps, are just intended to reach this level that at one point will help you to understand. And understand without your brain, without your understanding, but from your real experience. So I can stop there for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very thorough and coming from an insider, so it's very accurate and very insightful, and you've given us much to think about and to mix into all the other conversations that we've had today. Is there anybody else who'd like to add something or ask somebody anything?
I would
Are
actually.
we going to talk?
Actually, we have several books here. So Tony, I look forward to your book. Jean-Louis, I'm sure you've already done a couple. And I had a question for you, Hercules.
Ah, okay.
Yes, because we always have these conversations and you're very skillful at weaving, guiding from person to person. I would love to hear your take on initiation beyond aging, because you referred to that. You've had some other things. So this is a gentle nudge asking if you would please speak on the topic.
Okay. Basically, like Jean-Louis was saying and others have said, initiation, I believe, takes you from one state of mind to another state of mind. And it's a realization, it's a redefinition, it's a different modality from what you knew before. So in effect, you're in a new world. I found that life does this. If you're focused on it, that life itself will lead you through this process. And for me, it was through synchronicities. For others, it's through dreams. I'll occasionally get dreams. You'll get verification. If you got what it was all about, there will be some sort of verification. I had a significant near-death experience at one point in my 30s. And that was very revealing. And it gave me some information that seemed totally crazy. But I've since met other people who've almost died. And we talked about some of these things and they understood. So I believe that the secrets that Jean-Louis is talking about are, for people who've experienced something and realized something and seen something. I've spent much of my life designing programs for people who are mentally ill, for people who have substance abuse problems, for people who are from other cultures or whatever. And the programs I would design would be set up like businesses, like coffee shops or copy shops or whatever. And they were meant to take the person from the point where they were usually I can't work or I can't function or I can't interface with society to the point where they believe they can. And this can't be done with words. So by telling them that they're ready to work, or I think they're ready to work, I'm going to get resistance. So I can't do that. And back in the day in hospitals where I would set up these programs, you could smoke cigarettes. So I'd be smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and that was basically what it seemed that I was doing. But I would put them through a process where they started off in one point, and that was basically making coffee. So that's a manual repetitive task. It's very easy. Sometimes it's dead and you're staring at your coffee machine and your filters and whatnot. And other times you're really busy and you're going crazy trying to get everybody's coffee. So they're gonna have difficulty until they don't have difficulty. And then it's obvious that they don't have difficulty. So I put them somewhere else where they had different stressors to contend with. And then what would happen is, without my saying a word and without my doing much more than smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, the day would come when they'd ask me if they could join me at my table where I sat and did these things. And then they would say, I'm working now. And it's like, yes. And it said, I realized I could be getting paid for doing this. And I'd say, yes, congratulations, you graduated the program. But until the point where they got it and they told me, anything I said would have them fighting my saying it and then decompensating or slip sliding and stuff like that. So I couldn't say anything. So I view initiation in groups the same way. And when I've made groups, it's always been the same type of thing. And usually it's what the person is doing and saying that tells me that they're ready for whatever the next step happens to be. And there is usually a trial, and there is usually an understanding, and there is usually some sort of result. So if I see that this is happening, then symbolically I can weave it into whatever I'm doing with the person, and then it's on to the next, thing. And I have realized many things, as have all of you, but I haven't realized everything. Life is a constant learning experience. So I never assume that I know more than anybody else or that I have more insights than anybody else. But I have experienced certain things, and the things that I've experienced, I'm able to communicate them either verbally or through writing or through doing conversations. So that's what I do. And that's how I view initiation, that it never ends. It changes your world. It gives you a richer, better world in very many ways. And that it's a joy. So during our conversations here today, even, I got so much that relates to what I'm currently experiencing that I know that through there will be a rebirth of some sort, and I'll be the different person when I've integrated all this than I was before we started our talk tonight. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing. This has been a beautiful gift. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else want to ask anybody anything?
I had a question for Jean-Louis, short one, I think. This final initiation you described, do you think that that's what the initiates at Eleusis were experiencing?
No.
You do?
No.
No, okay.
No, because this kind of initiation can be performed just for one in the same time.
Right.
There were, and everyone knows that, attending a group initiation with a specific teaching, creating a real connection with a memory of these people, and they, to me, the closest we can find, closest to that, is in Freemasonry. At some initiations in Freemasonry, you have almost the same thing that when this is well done, they experience in Eleusis, because you have a group of people that they are initiating in the same way with something theatrical, and they can feel and experience something very deep on the psychological level, but not this kind of real deep experience. But in some temples, and Tony talked about that, with underground chambers, either in Egypt and in now Turkey, you have this possibility, yes, and still is. This is my experience, yes.
Well, it makes sense. But as we know, some of the Eleusinian initiates describe that same sort of certainty that you were talking about, of effectively dying and returning again. And that's what made me think, the description of their experience sounded very similar to what you were saying, but it would be remarkable to be able to do that, with thousands of people like they did
Yeah, you cannot, because if the guys are really dying, really, how you can work with that? You cannot.
Yeah.
But if I practice for a long time, I practice hypnotism, and I still teach deep relaxation, so you can reach a point that is almost similar to that. So the experience through this sacred representation can reach this point for this reason. Hypnotism, deep relaxation, things like that. You reach a state of consciousness that is so close that this is almost similar. I can understand that in this way. So when the guy who is managing the ritual asks to everyone to come back to the real life, it works. Someone can maybe fall asleep for a longer time, but mainly it works in a group of people, if this is well done. Yes.
Thank you. We're approaching the end of our hour. Before we get to everybody sharing how folks can contact them and what they're doing, I wanted to ask all of you to participate in something that I'm doing. In addition to this conversation, whenever I've had the opportunity, if you have anything going on, I've encouraged you to promote it on my pages, or I'll promote it on my pages, or whatever way we could promote what you're doing. And I'd like to do something a little bit more permanent with that. So I want to make a Facebook group, and I want to have an area for each of you that has all of your all of the things about you that people can follow, your the articles that you write in online periodicals, where they can get your books, both the ones you publish yourself and others are published for you. Any type of contact information you want to share, the things that you've done or that you're currently doing. This way, we'll promote it on the show and let people know that they can go there. So if anybody wants to find out more about you or follow your work closer or get involved with something you're doing, they can do that more easily. And so that's the first thing. So I'll contact everybody individually and we'll take it from there. The second thing is, again, I'm getting older, so I need to limit the amount of things I'm doing, because otherwise nothing gets done, everything's spread out. So one of the things I've always felt strongly about is, and as you know, I do the labors. I'm continuously doing the labors. So I want to devote time to the labor with the belt of Hippolyta. As you know, I'm a Lemnian Greek, so that's where the Argonauts went, and it was the island of the Amazon women. Did you see in the Harryhausen film? So basically, that's why I want to work on that. So I started getting involved with the League of Women's Voters. And I've been interviewing people who are running for things for years. So I'm going to continue doing that for my local community and working with the League of Women Voters, so that we can focus on voting issues more consistently. And we're going to develop resources for every episode that will, again, be chronicled in a Facebook group, probably, or a web page of some sort, so that they're permanent. But this way people can get involved and look things up more directly, so they can become more informed as voters. Because as we know, Socrates did not like voting, because without an educated electorate, you got tyranny, and we're watching that play out in our world today. So anyway, so if anybody wants to get involved in that, and in any way, or you're welcome to play. So that's what I have to say. And now we'll go back to Apollonius. Apollonius, how can people find you? How can they contact you? How can they enter your world, and what's new?
The best way to get in touch with me is through my website, opsopaeus.com, opsopaeus.com, or wisdomofhypatia.com. That's all one word, except the .com. And I've also got a Facebook page, John Opsopaeus. And you can, probably the best way to get a hold of me is by email through my websites, especially opsopaeus.com. And, I'm working on actually studying some spells from the Greco-Egyptian magical papyri that I've actually, one I've been using for 25 years, but I've been looking at it again carefully. And so I know I'm going to be contacting Tony about it because I know he's used it too. And so it's the spell for the favor of Hermes. It's at the first 63 lines of PGM8. So if any of you, the rest of you have worked with it or are interested in it, get in touch with me, and I want to pick your brains.
Thank you very much, sir. And now Clio, Ajana.
Apollonius, yes. And Hercules, yes. So let's see, the best way to get in touch with me on Facebook, I'm under Clio Ajana. And I also do my blog posts monthly under the Wild Hunt. You can just click the little envelope and that'll send me an email. You can also contact me at cleoajana.com. I'm going to be presenting at the Salmon Symposium coming up on the 26th, 27th, but I'm on the 27th, and I'm doing astrological boundaries and numerology in 2024. That's a lot of fun because I love playing with numbers, and it has been a doozy of the year. The current election is also a big doozy, and I also can't wait until next year either. So that's it. And this is so enjoyable. And thank you all again. I really appreciate it. And I think Tony.
Thank you too.
Okay, best way to contact me is through Facebook, either my personal page or my author page. I also have a blog through Patheos called Holistic Spirituality. I had hoped to be talking about self-initiation. That was the one topic that we were going to cover today, but we didn't. Maybe we could think about doing that next time. Most exciting thing that I have happening at the moment is, I don't know if you guys remember a publication called The Hermetic Tablet that Nick Farrell was putting out. So if you go on Amazon, there are back copies available from 2015 to 2018. And when I spoke to Nick about it, he's not sure if 2015 was the first year or not. It may have been 2014. I've got an essay he's relaunched it. And I've got an essay coming up in it, and I'm going to be comparing sidereal and tropical astrology. So quite excited about being involved in that. Back in the day, he actually had some huge names writing for him. So I'm hoping it takes off in a big way again.
Great success with that, and you are the person to speak to about things like that. So I'm looking forward to reading what you write.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Brandy did talk about self-initiation a bit today.
Yeah.
I would love to make that a topic for another meeting. So thank you for the suggestion. Brandy Williams.
I go by Brandy Williams Author, so brandywilliamsauthor.com, on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a Patheos blog called Star and Snake. And the most recent thing I've done, Hercules mentioned, we interviewed Frater Barabbas, who wrote Sacramental Theurgy for Witches for the show Witchcraft and Theurgy. It was a real great dovetail. It was a great fun to get to talk to him and catch up with him. Enormously knowledgeable person, and a fun person to think about. Maybe we can talk to him too.
That would be awesome. And he uses in his email, he's Tiresias. So I found that fascinating because
well, we all have, I think I'm the only person with the one name. Most of us have like more than one name here. So There it goes.
No, I only have one name. I even legally changed everything in my birth certificate and everything.
Oh,
So I'm
good job.
losing Invictus and stuff, having all these fragments of cells sprouting around all over the place. But so we're a team there. Thank you very much. And Brandy brought up Witchcraft Theurgy. I'll get to Jean-Louis in a second. And I've done shows with Apollonius and Tony. We've done shows in the past. So if any one of you wants to interview somebody and you'd like a platform, just work with me. I'll work with you and let's get it done. Okay. Last but certainly not least, Jean-Louis de Biasi. How can people enter your wonderful world?
So I'm using right now the meeting chat to give you the Facebook address and my website. This is debiasi.org, O-R-G, and Facebook, my first name, last name. So you can see that. About the project I am working on right now, I posted already, but I saw it was the name in French. So in English, this is mifm.org, and if this is not automatic, /en for the English section. So you can see what we are doing. This is more linked to Freemasonry, but anyway, this is linked to initiation and the Western tradition. And linked to that, you will find two sections, and I was working today on a very complicated one. The first one is, and I am posting the address right now, is en/IFW 2025. And this is an International Freemasonry Week in France in July, next July. So there is a very interesting work to do with artwork, art workshops, concert, lectures, and so on. So if you want at one point travel to France and discover the life in the southwest of France, this is the best time to go. And for everyone, Masons or not, we just created something, and the rules were, they will be posted tomorrow. This is an art contest, International Masonic Art Contest 2025, linked to the same event. So this is open to everyone, no matter the country, no matter if you are Mason or not. There will be awards for that, prizes and so on. And the launch will be tomorrow. Every information will be on the page. So this is what I am doing right now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much for telling us about it and inviting us all to participate. I want to thank everybody. This was an awesome conversation, and I look forward to speaking with each of you individually and again all together next month.
Oh, Hercules, I just want to add one more thing. I forgot to
Sure.
mention the Solomon Symposium. That's for people who are in Minnesota. If you're coming, it's at the Crown Plaza in Plymouth, and it's a fun time. And they have a lovely boxed lunch. And I do mean that when I say that. They try to cover everybody. So if you're in town, stop by.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add something before we go?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Aye.
So
Thank you.
long.
So long.